Good evening and welcome to the news. Tonight, pre-poll voters proving to be a struggle for some locals in the Hunter. While there's a lot of voting to come on the mid-north coast, as their residents head to the polls early. And numbers increased again as mice return to the New England Northwest. But first, pre-poll voting has begun, and while not everyone is eligible, half the more than 17 million Australian voters are expected to cast their ballot before Election Day. For some elderly residents in the Hunter, though, and those living with a disability, it isn't proving easy.
Less than 2 weeks from the big day, and Hunter locals are already heading to the ballot box.
Well, we're travelling, so we have to vote now. So I'll be interstate.
Early voting now underway for those who can't make May 21. But it's not going entirely according to plan.
I had to lean against a garden bed wall to do my vote.
Mike Bolter was unable to access his polling booth in King Street, Newcastle, saying he was forced to cast his vote out the front in public.
There were 30 plus people standing around because they were all handing out how to vote.
And he wasn't the only one, prompting a Newcastle councillor to question why other venues weren't used. Of the 15 pre-poll booths across the region, 2 don't have disability access, Toronto and Newcastle. Toronto residents are expected to visit Cameron Park, Belmont or Cornbong, all at least 20 minutes drive away. For those in Newcastle, it's much the same, with the choice of Maryland or Charlestown.
We do the best that we can to make sure that they are as accessible as possible. It's not always possible to do that, given that we've got a short time frame.
At Toronto, elderly voters had to contend with a dirt road shared with a construction site and a steep set of stairs to reach the ballot box.
Oh, I think this is totally unacceptable. I think it's terrible, especially if, like, my husband's on a walking stick. They may as well have a tent in the middle of the park somewhere.
Hannah Taylor, NBN News.
It's been a popular watering hole for more than a century. A pub patron, say, has the best view in Australia. But today, NBN News caught up with the Beach Hotel's new owner to get the word on what's next for the Merewether landmark.
An icon overlooking one of Australia's best beaches.
This part of Newcastle, Merewether, the beach, the bars, it's just fantastic. It's got to have one of the best views in Australia.
And in just months, the Beach Hotel will change hands. Sydney hotelier Glenn Piper snapping it up for a reported $40 million earlier this month.
I absolutely adore Australian beach culture, and I believe venues like this can really celebrate Australian beach culture. I have family in Newcastle, and they were actually the ones that alerted me to the property being on the market for sale.
Mr. Piper has fond memories of the pub from family holidays as a child.
On occasion, we actually stayed in the accommodation that used to be at the beaches. Hotel.
He's fresh to the hotel game, his first and only other purchase being Sydney's Harbord in 2020.
We're seeing Newcastle as an emerging economy, a growing population. It's very competitive from what I hear.
Mr. Piper respects the pub's place in locals' hearts.
It's more than just a pub, it's actually, a haven where the locals can get together and have a good time.
But he does have plans. The building's heritage status means that outside will stay much the same. But the menus and drink lists may see a revamp, while the interior will also get a facelift.
I suspect there'll be a lot of beach and surf-orientated theming through the property.
Hannah Taylor, NBN News.
Meanwhile, pre-polling booths opened across the mid-north coast today, with hundreds of residents getting their ballots in early. The large response coming as a surprise to those looking to get ahead of the rush.
Whether they were waiting in a queue at Coffs Harbour or patiently standing in line at Port Macquarie, hundreds of Mid-North Coast residents were out in force this morning, rearing to have their say in the upcoming election. Even Kempsey getting a few ballots in the box, 2 weeks out from the big day.
I've always pre-polled because I hate lining up, and now I'm lining up.
For some, being an early bird is a tradition.
It's democracy in action, but I've always tried to get it out of the way early.
For others, it was about ticking that box before kicking back.
We're leaving for Tasmania on Wednesday morning.
Because we're leaving Coffs Harbour on a loop around Australia.
Well, I'm flying to Melbourne tomorrow.
Cowper's candidates hitting the ground running on day one.
I don't take anything for granted, and I'll continue to work until 6 o'clock on Saturday night.
The community here in Cowper will be my party. I will consult with this community.
I'm just getting around to see all the local businesses and letting them know that I'm here to support them.
For those in the Kempsey Shire, the federal election isn't the only vote pencilled into the diaries. The next local government election, set to be announced in coming days, sending voters to the polling booth for a third time in 6 months.
Yes.
No, well,
I am.
I'm not. We need to have our say.
Gemma Pepper, NBN News.
They destroyed millions of dollars in livelihoods, produce and crops last year. Now, New South Wales farmers has issued an unfortunate warning. Mice are returning to the New England northwest.
It's the news no one wanted. The mice are back.
Look, it's right from the New England northwest right through down to the Riverina in the south.
Thankfully, the rodents aren't yet in the plague proportions of a year ago, but there have been sightings. And with sowing and harvest still underway, conditions are ideal for the pests to get the nutrition they need.
That seed will provide a new food source for them, and indeed the seedlings that are germinating. And what you get then is the potential for a breeding event.
New South Wales Farmers Vice President Xavier Martin says mice are resilient survivors of the land, though even he has been surprised at the number of mousehole reports.
Yes, normally this time of the year is when they go quiet. Certainly their breeding reduces and they disappear down their mouseholes with their pantry full. To survive the winter.
Xavier is urging farmers and landholders alike to keep an eye out for the critters and to report any activity.
Hop out of the ute, have a look, get those chew cards out so they can be measured and monitor the level of infestation.
Jessica Warboys, NBN News.
Meanwhile, pre-polling got underway across the Northern Rivers today. Candidates hit the campaign trail hard, pushing locals to vote in their favour for the seats of Richmond and Page.
Bright and early, Ballina's Sonny Macaulay becomes the town's first voter to cast his ballot. Heading to the local indoor sports centre, Sonny was eager to be ticked off the list before travelling to Brisbane to look after his ill mother. But despite his punctuality, Mr Macaulay says finding a polling booth hasn't been easy.
Sometimes I don't know where the locations are because I'm computer illiterate.
For others, the process was up front. Some voting ahead of schedule due to holidays.
We're going to Melbourne.
A few heading to the booths by choice.
I've made up my mind, so I just wanted to get it done.
10 pre-polling centres are now open across the Northern Rivers, but for those impacted by the floods, the Electoral Commission is offering an alternative.
So even though they're not in their current, in their usual address, they can actually apply for a postal vote and get that sent to where they are currently located.
Typically, 30 to 40% of every 100,000 voters choose to vote early. Here in Richmond, a mammoth 46% will select their preferred party ahead of election day. Candidates out in full force today.
I want young voices in Parliament and more women's voices in Parliament.
I would like to see us move our funds and the public purse away from fossil fuels and into supporting our farmers and our families and our communities.
One of the 50 new urgent care facilities that Labor has announced will be right here in Lismore.
The incumbent member for Page proud of what he's delivered in his last 3 terms.
We've had unprecedented infrastructure spending in our region. We've had highways, we've had new hospitals, we've had new sporting facilities.
The Legalise Cannabis Australia Party launches its Senate campaign,
where individuals can choose to vote for a number of small parties.
Additional polling booths will open on Saturday. Josephine Shannon, NBN News.
Sports up next. Of course, it's your local sport. And of course, we'll have the results of the Group 21 Rugby League in the Hunter. And of course, we'll have the highlights of Rugby League elsewhere in the New England Northwest, as well as on the North Coast. And also, Eleanor remains undefeated in Central Coast Rugby League. First, at the Hunter Valley's Group 21 Rugby League, Round 3 started on Friday with Scone defeating Denman 44-14, while both Greta Brankston and Musselbrook shared the points at 0-0. And also Aberdeen secured a win over Singleton 42-22. Eleanor remains undefeated in the Central Coast Rugby League after 3 rounds. Meanwhile, Woy and Wyong also enjoyed wins at the weekend. And of course, along with Kincumber, who were too strong for the Berkeley Vale Panthers. If tries like these in the Central Coast Rugby League had to occur, it just had to happen. Kincumber were too strong for their rivals, Berkeley Vale. And of course, the Colts were just too strong for their rivals. After storming into the A-League finals on the back of 5 successive wins, the Central Coast Mariners now face an elimination final in Adelaide this Sunday. Just like the Yellow and Navy, the Reds are also in superb form, with an unblemished month-long record. In early team news, left fullback Jacob Farrell will be available after serving a 1-match ban and missing the F3 derby. And also, if Nick Montgomery's men can get the job done, they will host a home semi-final on Wednesday, May 18th. It follows the Mariners' win over the Jets on Saturday. Terrigal's IRB crews will fine-tune their skills for round 1 of the Premiership Series this weekend. The team has expected tough competition from former winners Kynema Downs and Caves Beach, but Bruce Moyes quietly confident his club can finish on top at its home beach. While fast and spectacular to watch, it also simulates rescue scenarios our lifesavers face every summer. Meanwhile, Wollongong and the South Coast will also host the event before the series returns to the Central Coast next month. The ultimate prize, the state championships, to be held at Southwest Rocks in July. Reveds from near and far descended on Tamworth for the 14th Charlie McGarver Memorial Classic. Spectators were treated to a series of thrills and spills, all in recognition of a man who loved the Speedway.
It's got the noise and the spin-outs to boot. The Oakburn Speedway packed with those with a need for speed on a chilly Saturday night.
Yeah, we had a bit over 100 competitors in all classes, from street stockers to late model sedans and juniors and go-karts and everything in between.
The Charlie McGarver Memorial Race, now in its 14th year, always the program's standout. While locals were hoping for a win from McGarver's Revhead kids Belinda and Dave, it was an out-of-town pair who crossed the line first.
The Everly boys won. Two brothers from down Maitland. They put on a great show and they come out winners.
The thrills of the occasion leaving their mark.
There was a few of the fender benders actually. They doing their, not only bending their fenders, but they were bending our fence.
The next event on the Motorcycle Club's calendar, the New South Wales Long Track Championships in Corindai next weekend.
We go from a 450 metre track at Oakburn to an 800 metre track down there. Long track bikes, speedway side cars, flat track bikes, everything.
Jessica Warboys, NBN News.
To Group 4 Rugby League, and the Manila Tigers were out to snag their first win of the season in yesterday's round 5 match against Boggabri. But despite putting their best foot forward, it wasn't enough to beat a blazing Roos outfit.
They were supposed to have the home ground advantage, but the Manila Tigers ended up in Tamworth instead. It was the first in a series of blows delivered to the Cats in yesterday's match, Boggabri hopping on the first try of round 5. An unpredictable bounce helping the Tigers snag possession of the ball, but the mighty Roos didn't let them get away that easy. A quick pass from Jack Gillam helping Rob Doolin over the line. Tigers fans spurring players to stop a blazing Steno Panasoni. But it was another easy fall for the Roos. Some poor defence from Manila letting a few nimble passes through, resulting in this try from Isaiah Adams. Then the Tigers finally got their moment. Adam Rutley putting one down for the boys. As the halftime buzzer rung out, Boggabri held a mammoth 30-4 lead. The Tigers returning to the field with a vengeance, spirits lifting after this try from Mitch Doring. A fumble from Panasoni helping them land another. The Tigers bringing out all the claws. Rob Doolin breaking the spell with this try as Mitch Terrell put down one last hurrah for Manila. But despite the pickup, it just wasn't enough to catch Boggabri. The Roos taking the win 56-28, leaving a disappointed Tigers outfit winless so far this season. Jessica Warboys, NBN News.
Now to Group 19 Rugby League, and of course it all continued on Saturday, where Narwin defeated Urella Walker with a 24-6 win. And also it all wrapped up on Sunday, where the Armidale Rams defeated the Moree Boomerangs 48-42. The Lower Mid-North Coast rugby competition has officially begun, with an epic clash between the Wollamba Bulls and Manning River Rats. While it was a close game for the two teams, the Bulls walked away with the win in the closing minutes.
It was neck and neck between the Wollamba Bulls and Manning River Rats for most of the match. The Rats dominating in the early stages, fullback Michael Bailey streaked away to score. The first half was a battle in the middle, both teams playing chase for points. Built pressure but not clearing the ruck earned Manning River a penalty and a break. Flanker Nathan Cowboy Backholt sliced through a tired defence, sealing the deal at half-time for the Rats at 17-6. But it was a different story in the second half. Wollamba threatened the line of a tight Manning River defence. barging over through Ash Rushby and closing the gap on the scoreboard 17-11. The Rats unable to fend the barrelling Bulls. Wingers Casey Gear scoring within 10 minutes to go and Adrian Pryke sealing the deal for Wallamba at 26-17.
Through a couple of our big forwards, and we've got very nippy wingers, so that sort of pays dividends for us as well too.
Oh, we played 10 minutes of that game with 13 players, so you're making twice as many tackles, and the attitude of the guys during the game as well, no one put their heads down, everyone kept having a crack, so that's all you can hope to start the season.
Gemma Pepper, NBN News.
To round 3 of Group 2 Rugby League, and Wagulga were too strong for the Nambucca Roosters. Meanwhile, South Grafton and the Arawa Valley Axemen were forced to have a 0-0 draw. Meanwhile, Maxville and Coffs Harbour also had a draw, but this time at 6-6. While both the Grafton Ghosts and Sawtells also had a good game, but of course Grafton ran away 30-10 winners. In round 1 of the of Group 3 Rugby League, which of course started over the weekend, and the Port Macquarie Sharks secured a huge victory over the Macleay Valley Mustangs, while the Foster Tuncurry Hawks were too strong for the Warhope Blues. Meanwhile, both Wingham and the Port City Breakers, as well as the Old Pirates and Taree City, had a 0-0 draw. After the break, Lismore defeats Kyogle as we wrap it up with the NRRL. Well, finally tonight, the Lismore Maris brothers were forced to be recognised with yesterday's Northern Rivers Regional Rugby League match against the Kyogle Turkeys. Despite the Turkeys notching the first points of the game, the Lismore boys got on a roll, scoring 6 consecutive tries in the first half. But before putting down another 7 in the second. Of course, Lismore beat Kyogle by a landslide 70 points to 14. But despite that, Byron Bay and Evans Head had to share the points at 0-0, while the match between Tweed Coast and Ballina was postponed. Meanwhile, the match between Murwillumbah and Lower Clarence got ahead, as Murwillumbah defeated Lower Clarence 62-0. That's about it for the latest. And don't forget, I'll be back tomorrow. Good night.